Thank you for watching. This is the Legends podcast by All Day Vinyl, and I'm your host, Scott Duddleson. This episode, we speak with Mark Howard, who recorded and mixed Le Noise by Neil Young, Real Gone by Tom Waits, and worked with Joni Mitchell on a remix of her very first album. He shares stories from those three sessions, working very closely with those legends. Amazing anecdotes. I had a great time chatting with him, and if you'd like to chat, please like it, subscribe, leave a comment, just say hi. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the chat. In the mid 90s.
Right, yeah.
Um, and Neil notoriously has his own crew of people he works with,
Yep.
which now includes Rick Rubin. So tell me how you got involved, you and Daniel started working with
Yeah, at the time, Dan also had the same manager as Neil, Elliot Roberts. And so me and Dan had made a record called Black Dub, which
him.
was filmed. The record is filmed live as we were playing it. And so that way the recording and the film all lines up. It's not cut together, it's one piece and they're like filmed pieces. And so each song we did exactly that way. And so Elliot had showed these to Neil, and Neil really thought he really liked it. And he goes, "Why can't I have a record like that?" And so Neil and Daniel Lanois started talking, and they agreed for Neil to come down to Dan's house in Silver Lake, to a house called Bella Vista. And so I had set up a rig in the hallway of Dan's house. He had a full studio in the basement with a Neve 8068, but I didn't like the vibe in the basement. It was like a dungeon. And so he's got a beautiful living room and a beautiful hallway. So I just set up my rig in his hallway. And so uh, like I was telling you before about how my sound system works, I use a playback system that's got like big 18-inch subwoofers, and it's got like multiple speakers towering. And so when you play back, stuff sounds bigger than real. So then it really happens and exciting, and it makes the artist happy, and they really dig it. So when Neil decided to come down, we had tested all Dan's mics, and I got everything all lined up and which guitars we could use and amps, and we picked the best of everything. And so we did all of our kind of like homework before he got in. And so it'd be like, "Oh, Neil's coming in tomorrow at noon," and we're there waiting, and Neil don't show up that day. And then it's like, "He's coming in tomorrow, staying at the Beverly Hills hotel." And so yeah, all right. And he doesn't show up the next day either. Like, God, what's going on? So he finally shows up on the third day, and he rolls in there. But before that, he had sent one of his uh, techs with a van with all of his instruments and pump organ and a bunch of other all of his amplifiers and stuff like that, guitars. And so when Neil eventually got there, he explained that he was waiting for the full moon. He claims that he can't work only on 3 days before the full moon. So he was waiting for that 3 days before the full moon so he can start recording. Because claims if you record before that or after that, that you're not going to get as good as a performance or a vibe.
Is that how he's done his career, or was
I
that
don't
specific for
know, but
this?
that was for this
Wow.
particular record. He really wanted to push that. And so, the record took 6 months to make because we're waiting for all the full moons. And so eventually, once he came in, we started working, and it got to a point where Neil he had some songs meant to be acoustic record, and
Mm.
so I developed the sound. I thought, how the hell am I gonna better his guitar sound? I'm a big fan of.
Using the old black guitar.
He's
Right.
got well the acoustic end of it,
Oh, the
like,
acoustic.
and so this is supposed to be an acoustic record, just filmed each song on acoustics and stuff like that. But he had also brought what uh, a rec to Les Paul, a '57 Les Paul Gold Top that he's painted black, So
That's what he used on
that
"Hey Hey My,"
yes,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
it's the classic,
yeah.
yeah. And then he's got this other guitar that it's a white Falcon Gretsch, and
Mhm,
it's a special guitar because it's a twin stereo output. So the top three strings come out of one pickup, and the bottom three strings come out of another pickup. So you split that into two amps, and so you have to play it a certain way.
mhm,
And so he plays like like a crazy like da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, da-dum. So it's like a very stereo
mhm.
spread if you listen to that record.
Very psychedelic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. And so we started with the acoustics, and he had his acoustic there, and he called it Hank, and it used
Mhm.
Hank
Yeah.
Williams guitar. And but Dan had a little guild, little mahogany guild, and I tested every pickup known to man, and I came up with LR bags. So I put the LR bags in that, and then so I mic'd it, and then I ran a DI of it, so I had a direct signal at the same time, and so we had Neil set up in this big, beautiful living room, and so it just and I was in the hallway, and but as we were checking the guitars, I had a couple of effects that I had on it. So when Neil would hit the low string of the guitar, it would trigger this sub harmonizer that I had, and it would just shake the house like an earthquake. It was like, what the hell is this? So he'd
Wow.
never felt that off an acoustic before. So I thought, okay, this is good. He had a big smile. He really liked it, and so we ended up cutting "Love and War." I think the
Yeah.
song was in. If you listen to that, it's like in headphones. It's just got the sub.
It's
It's
an
so
incredible, dense
warm and
record.
dreamy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's
and
unlike anything that he'd
yeah,
ever done.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was excited, and
Yeah.
I created a sound for him that he'd never heard before and never never felt. And because I play and I got the speakers on, and it gives you that kind of fulfillment that you're live and you're on a stage and stuff like that. So I think that part of it really worked well for that. And then so we'd cut. I think there was another song called Peaceful Valley something on that record. That was an acoustic song, and so that one, the low frequency didn't work as well as Love and War. And so we cut those two, and he went away. We waited for the next full moon, and on the next full moon, he
Did
comes
you
back.
did you know you're waiting, or was that
Yeah.
like, did
Oh
he
yeah.
tell you, or was
Oh
it
yeah.
just
Yeah.
like,
We were told
yeah,
that
okay,
we were waiting for these full moons. So he comes back, and so then he's got his the two electrics with him, and he says, "I want to try walk with me
mhm,
with this Les Paul." And so we set up two tweed amps, and he's got this special treatment on his amps where a tweed amp has tubes in it, and what happens is the tube amps heat up, and then your tone goes away because it's too hot. So he has these fans blowing cool air on the tubes
mhm,
to keep the amp cool as possible, to keep the tone there all the time. And uh, so he pulls out the guitar, and I'm just it's the same faders, everything. That's kind of it's only like two channels or three channels or whatever, and then I got my effects coming back on another console, and so I got the speakers kind of turned up pretty loud, and then he hits that chord on that guitar, and it just blew his mind. His pant legs were swaying. The house was also shaking, and we had to tape all the windows down. It was pretty serious
I bet
sound.
he'd love that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that became kind of like a bit of the sound. It was also another treatment that I did on that record, and it's something that I spend a lot of time in Jamaica, and I do a lot of dub work. So I've got a lot of dubs on that record where, hey, 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 like these like real strange psychedelic sounds, and they're all done by this old lexicon delay that's got a touch hold on it. And so I kind of developed the style the way I use it, and I can like hold words or sounds, or and then but you can lower them. So it's like I'm just doing all this stuff on the fly
Yeah.
as he's playing, and he's like, "Bro, what the hell is this sound?" It's like, and so he was pretty excited about it, and so we had cut, a couple of those ones with that guitar, and we did. Then he brought out the oh boy, no, the White Falcon,
Mm.
and so I split the pickup and went into it, and then I think that was the one that he may have played "Walk with Me On."
So tell me the story on Hitchhiker. That's the centerpiece of, to me, the album.
Yeah, well,
So
he
tell
had
me.
he had written Hitchhiker, I guess, in the '60s, and there was a version of it, but he never felt it was
Let
complete.
me let me let me let me just maybe you know the story, maybe you don't know the story, but what I read was he wrote it in the mid 70s and actually played it for Bob Dylan.
Well,
Bob Dylan came over one day and played it, and Bob Dylan's comment on it was, "That's very honest." That's very honest. And Neil didn't know what to do with it and
right.
just kind of
Yeah.
shelved it from there
Yeah.
and pick us up
Yeah.
30 years later.
Yeah. So it poked his head out again for this record, and so Neil would go away to Hawaii, and you know Dan would call him up and said, "You got any new songs?" And he'd say, "No, I'm sitting here over the rabbit hole, and nothing's coming out." And so it got to the point where like after he'd go to Hawaii, and then we get a call and saying, I've written this one song, and I'm sure it was Hitchhiker, and he had finished it there. Anyways, he finally finished the last verse or whatever it was. And so then when he came back in, then I think that's when he performed it, and we had the film guy, the director, Adam Volek, his name was, and so he's a Canadian guy, and he came down. So it was like we're all Canadians in this room doing this record. So we had projectors that we were projecting the sky and all the clouds kind of going by, and so we're doing the projections as we were recording
Mm.
him, and we got the front doors of Bella Vista open, and everybody in Silver Lake heard that record go down. Oh, I had it so bloody loud, and so
Real quick, go back on Hitchhiker. So you had shared a story with me. I hope you could
yeah.
share it again. So when he was in Hawaii, he got some inspiration, and they brought
Yeah,
that inspiration back.
yeah. So he had said that he had finished the song, and he had this joint that he had smoked in Hawaii, and he thought, well, I wrote it on this joint. I want to record it on this joint. So he put the joint out, and he carried the joint all the way back for him. And so when we're about to record, he sparked it back up so he could be high on the other side of
With
it
the joint that has the
with the joint.
inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. So it was an interesting thing, but he had gone through he had a brain aneurysm kind of just before this record, and the doctors said don't smoke weed, like don't even do it. And so after the sessions I would usually just take a little hit, and I think it may have got him started again. I'm not sure. uh, uh,
You're to blame.
I could be to blame, but yeah, so when he came in, um, we recorded it after he smoked it. We listened back, and it was pretty incredible. And I had a lot of dub work on that track also.
It's a great song. And for anyone who's not familiar with it, definitely find it. It's not streaming, but you can find it somewhere. And it's a drug song. It's all about Neil's history with
He says
the
the word
various drugs.
hash.
Hash. I think it's hash and opiate. I think he talks about everything he
Yeah,
does
yeah.
in that. It's his autobiography, from what I understood of
Okay.
his drug journeys.
Hmm.
And so what he wrote new was the last verse,
I
so
think
about his
so. Yeah,
family.
yeah. And then after after that session, he went away again. And during that session, Daniel Lanois got in a motorcycle accident and broke his ribs, and he was up for a while or down for a while. And so Neil kept on saying, "When are we gonna finish? When are we gonna finish?" And kept calling him. And so at that time, there was a running joke, about Lanois' last name. People don't know how to say it properly, and people call him Le Noise. And so Neil would always call Dan Lanois, the noise. And so the record was supposed to be called Hitchhiker. And I did the tour, and they had a Hitchhiker shirts
Yeah.
made for that tour, and but as we were mastering and as a joke, that became the name of the record, based off of Lanois' last name. That's why it's called La Noise, which you know was pretty crazy. We would drive up to Neil's ranch up in Northern California, and I brought some speakers with me, and we go and listen to it up at his ranch. And
He's a barn. Is it the barn?
oh,
Is that the thing?
he's got multiple places. We stayed in what was called the White House, and that's where uh, his band always stays. And then he's got Redwood Digital. I think that's the studio. But then he's got a couple of other houses. His house is pretty phenomenal. It's like a big log cabin added on over the years. It's huge and beautiful inside. But then he's got his car collection in a big kind of room, and then behind his car collection is his amp collection. It's just like a wall of every amp he ever had. It was pretty amazing. And then I said, Neil, didn't you buy like a train company that makes toy trains? He says, yeah, Lionel. I think it was called
Yeah, Lionel.
Lionel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he brought us into this other building where he had this huge train set that he built for his son. The one of them that was in the wheelchair. And so it was phenomenal. It was like, oh, it was like pretty huge. It was the size of a warehouse of
Yeah.
trains and all kinds of different landscapes. And so it was interesting to see kind of how what he's been up to and stuff like that. So,
How is you work with Bob Dylan, you work with Neil Young, these two of the premier icons of music history. How are they same and how are they different?
um, lyrically, I think
Working wise.
work wise, yeah, they definitely got two different kind of work methods and how they work. And Neil is kind of set up with his full moon, and but at the same time, Bob, he only likes to record at night. He said there's something about nighttime where things are a little more slowed down, and also he prefers to work at night. And Neil only works before the full moon,
Yeah.
so it's crazy. So I think that's the kind of difference. Like that's similar to it, kind of their work methods. But as far as lyrics and stuff like that, I got to see it, kind of firsthand. Um, I'm of the opinion that they're very well read.
Yeah.
They've read the classics. They know all of that stuff. And yeah, I didn't read any of that stuff, but I found out later by reading some of that stuff that some of those things may have been taken from
Right.
some of
Right.
those.
Some creative inspiration.
Yeah, I was looking through this book, and there it was, boom, right in front of me. Time out of mind. That's where I got it from. I was like, yeah, so I think that's where, and as when we get into it, Tom Waits is he's pretty amazing with lyrics, but he gets them from some
Yeah.
sources too.
Well, let's talk about Tom Waits. You worked on Tom's album, I think it was 2004, Real Gone.
Yes.
And how did you get involved with that? Because that wasn't through the Daniel Lanois.
No, no. But there's a record company called Anti, and the one of the guys there at Anti Records, he really loved to listen to Williams records. And so he had called me up, and he said his name was Andy Culkin. and he said, "I'd really like you to make a record with Tom." And I proposed it to Tom, and Tom's going to call you. And so I said, "Oh, wow, that would be great. I'd love to make a record with him." And so we kind of left it at that. And Tom never called. About a year later, I get a call from Tom. So serious,
Just out of the blue.
just out of the blue, like boom.
Does it come up on your phone? It says Tom waits, or you
No,
just pick up a
no,
random number and there he is.
I just pick up the number, and
That's a good
he's
one.
and so he goes, "Hey, Mark, it's Tom." And I said, "Hey, Tom," and he goes, "I hear you make some great records, and I know you produce a lot of your records, but I was wondering, is it possible if you could come and make a record with for me where you just kind of like, record it and can mix it?" I said, "Yeah, I do that all the time for a lot of people, and it'd be, easy for me to do." And he says, "Yeah, well, just, the way we work is me and my wife, Kathleen, we kind of deal with the production and writing and all that stuff." I said, "Okay, great. Yeah." So what happened is I was working out of a place in LA in a beautiful, big, huge mansion called the Paramore. And it was like a 1920s movie star estate that was once owned by Tonio Marino, Anthony Marino, sorry, and he married Daisy Canfield, who was oil family from LA, and her father built this amazing place. So that's where I made Lucinda's record, and so I invited Tom and his wife Kathleen down to LA because they live up by San Francisco, Petaluma area. And so they came down, and Tom says, "I've been, working on these songs, and I go into the bathroom late at night while everybody's sleeping, and I got this 4-track cassette, and what I do is I've been making these rhythms with my mouth, and then I hit it with a pan, tong, tong." And so he had all of these songs and all of these different rhythms that he'd come up with on this 4-track cassette, but he had no way to hear these songs unless he played it off this 4-track cassette. And I said, "Let's go through all the ones you got. I'll make a CD for you, and you can take it home with you. And you can listen to it, and we can pick the best ones." And I said, once we pick the best ones, we'll re-record them, with my really nice equipment and uh, nice microphones, and so we said, "All right." So and I said, "Well, would you like could you come down here and finish?" And he goes, "No, I can't work here. I got to stay close to the family and stuff like that." And so Tom, he lives out past Petaluma, and if he wants to go to a studio, it's like 2.5, 3 hours away. Prairie Sound, I think, is the closest one. So I said, "Well, let me." He says, "But I found this building. It's the end of my driveway. It's the old schoolhouse." He said, "Will you come up and look at it?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I flew up there, and I looked at it, and it was exactly the same size as the Paramore room.
Mm.
And so I said, "Yeah, I'll bring all the gear up. We'll make it here, and it's close for you." And like, so I went back to the Paramore, packed up all my gear, and drove it up there. So it was going to be for a couple of months. We were camped up there, but the schoolhouse was also used for uh, farmers to show off their livestock and their prize pigs and stuff like that. So we in the middle of the record, I had to pull everything out so they could have this kind of like farm meeting and
Amazing.
thing go on there. But yeah, so that's became like uh, this spot where we made Real Gone, and it was a strange record where Tom, he can't really talk in normal terms technically. Like if he wants you to turn the vocal up, he can't just say turn the vocal up. He'll say put a little more hair on it. Like, "Oh yeah, I'll put a little more hair on it." Like, here's the hair button. Like, that better. And like, so you got to like kind of think about what he's talking about. But it's like as when we first started recording, I was being pretty enthusiastic. I was excited about, where we were going with this record, how it was sounding. And I'm, like I'd say, I'm more of a guerrilla recordist than I am, and I like to use different methods and stuff that is very lo-fi to people. And so me, by being too enthusiastic, I get this phone call. I'm staying in this hotel in Sebastopol, and he calls me. He goes, "Mark, it's Tom." I said, "Hey, Tom." He goes, "Mark, I'm feeling a little bit more like you're the pharmacist and I'm a patient." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You try to prescribe me Ziaxidane and I need to be on Triaxidil." And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah." He goes, "But maybe I need to be on, you know, on this drug, and but I need to." And so, in other words, shut up, let me find my own way, and this is the way I work. And so I said, "Okay, cool." And so throughout the record, there's always like different terms for that he had for, like, if we cut a take and it was like the first take and it just happened, it was natural. He goes, "That one came out of the ground like a potato." Done. so 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 it's he's got this kind of quirky kind of persona about him, that he talks in a strange manner, but he drifts in and out of it. I think he puts it up on sometimes just to, but when it's just me and him in the room, it just seems like he's just like a normal guy, and we can talk about anything.
You had Les Claypool on that album, right?
Les came in, and the drummer also from
Jay
Primus.
Lane. Is that right?
And no, they call him Brain.
Oh, right.
Is it what's his real name?
I don't know.
Brian, right?
Yeah, he was the original
But
drummer.
somebody had spelt his name wrong and they called him Brain. And so yeah, so he was there. And so he was it was an interesting. And then Mark Rebo from New York came in. Mark is kind of a master of kind of crazy guitar sounds and amazing kind of rhythms and stuff like that, but he never played on a live with Tom on a record. He'd always overdubbed it
Oh, the
afterwards.
record was recorded live.
Yeah, this
Um,
record was pretty live off the floor.
mhm.
And so during that, like, there was two bathrooms. There was a boys' bathroom and a girls' bathroom, and like in the schoolhouse, and there was still the board like went all the way around the ceiling with the alphabet on it and numbers and stuff like that. You could see it, and but we had a setup in the girls' bathroom, and it had these stall doors, and so I put Brain in there, and I wasn't using microphones. I was using a Sony uh, cassette player. It's like has two speakers in it. It's got two microphones. Put a cassette in the front, and then you put it in record, and it has two lines out. And I would take those lines out. And what it is that, for whatever reason, that has this compression in it that makes everything sound more exciting than it actually is, because it's lo-fi. And so I had that in the bathroom, and I kept it on all the time so we could hear. So Brain had gone into the bathroom, and Tom goes, "What's that sound?" I go, "It's Brain, he's in the bathroom." He goes, "Yeah, right." And then you hear him stop and open the stall door, and it slams. He goes, "What's that?" I go, "That's the stall door. It slammed." He goes, "I want to use that sound." And I said, "Okay, cool." And so I go in there and tell Brain, like, tell him what you did, like, slam the door, in rhythm, so boom. And then when you hit the downbeat, hit the wall with this piece of wood. So it's boom, 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 boom. And so coming through this cassette deck, it was like this crazy cool
Mm.
sound. I was like, and I thought, that's amazing. And so we cut the track with it on, and right at the very end of the song, that he pulls the door falls off the hinges and hits the ground right in time. It's like, wow, pretty cool. And so Brain had his what was his it's called an MPC 60 drum machine, and he had it because he lived in Frisco. It's like car culture there, like custom paintwork, and so he had his drum machine painted with this custom car paint, and it looked pretty sharp. So he took that sound of the door slamming, and mixed it with some other kind of sample that he had. So that made it that sound. And then um, another time, he's brains back in there, and he's got a snare drum, and he's got a roll of gaffer tape, and he's taping the gaffer tape uh, to mute this drum sound. And so Tom hears that, and he goes, "Well, what's that sound?" And I go, "He's got the gaffer tape. He's gaffing up his snare drum." He goes, "I want to use it." And so we had to get Brain to play um, uh, with the gaff tape. So it was like, and then he matched that with a like an 808 kick drum. So it was boom, 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 and so it was this cool effect that was going on. Can't or I think it was the song uh, "Make It Rain" or one of those, "Make It Rain" or another one. But you hear it right away, like a shh, right at the top of the song. So yeah, so that was another kind of crazy sound that we got. And then he had invited his son to come do some scratching because he liked to do the DJ thing. And so Tom says, "Here, Casey, take this $100, go into Frisco and get some vinyl." So Casey takes the 100 and he leaves in the morning. And then we hear him come back from Frisco, and Tom opens the door and goes, "Oh no!" I go, "What? What happened?" He goes, "You put the vinyl on the back window." And it warped all of the vinyl that he just bought. Anyways, it was we still did some scratching. It's pretty cool. But
He's a
yeah,
genius.
yeah. With Tom, he married Kathleen, his wife, and they had some kids together. He doesn't like to go on tour or leave his house. And Kathleen said, "Yeah, we were in New York, and Tom freaked out, and he wouldn't go out on stage unless he had this kick drum with this painting of the Alps with these mountains on it, and it was at his mother's house in uh, in the Bronx, and so we had to send somebody out to the Bronx, keep the audience in there for an hour in this big, huge hall in New York, and so they finally got the kick drum there, and he agreed to go out on stage, and but he never played it. It just sat there. It's like, and so he has like this. So he doesn't like to tour very often, and he does some TV stuff, but he's pretty particular.
Yeah.
He did Black Rider was like a play that he'd done in San Francisco, and so he had gotten Marianne Faithfull to come in to do some of it, and another girl from Canada that maybe I think she I remember her name, but she'd quit, and so Marianne was taking over. But it was interesting to see. I went to that play, and it was pretty cool. He had all the music in there. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, what a crazy environment to make records in.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
want to talk about one more legend that you worked with. Worked with so many, but Joni Mitchell,
yeah,
who you remixed "Song of the Seagull," which
yeah,
was her first album.
yeah,
How did that come about, and why did
yeah.
Joni want that remixed?
Um, well, I'd known Joni from before mixing that record. She had came in to sing on Brian Blade's jazz record, and so that was in Oxnard. And so I knew her from that, and I recorded all her vocals on this record. And then what happened was is somebody had called me from the CBC in Canada. They were going to be interviewing Joni at her house, and so they asked if I could come in because they had saw this documentary piece that Neil had done about making a little noise, and they said, "Well, we want to have an all Canadian crew too," and they, they said, "Would you come in and record her vocal for us, and we'll match it up later." So I said, "Yeah, yeah, no problem." So went to Joni's house, and she goes, "Oh yeah, Elliot's been talking about you." Elliot Roberts was her manager and helping
Right.
her out too at the same time. So she remembered me, and she goes, I need your help, and can you come back, after this and help me?" And so, I said, "Yeah, sure." And went back up to her house a couple of days later, and she told me what she was looking to do. She said, like my first four records were all just acoustic and voice, and but the very first one was produced by um, uh,
David
oh,
Crosby.
David Crosby, and she goes, David, he misproduced my record, and he made me double my guitar, and for all these years, I've never liked it. I never liked my first record, and it's got some great songs, but I want to get back. So I had to find the tapes, and most of them were on Cosby, Neil Nash, multi tracks
Well,
in between other songs.
really?
And oh yeah, like they had pieced a lot of the stuff together. Like when they were working, they used the same roll and put her on it and stuff like that. Some of it was done on acetate, which it's a different type of tape that you record on, more film type of stuff was done on acetate. But I got it all and I transferred it into digital. So I was able to go to her house and I was able to mix it right there in front of her. And so she just sit on the couch and smoke and you know say
Is
how.
she active in how she wanted it to sound? Did she
Oh
have a vision
well,
on that?
I would mix it the way I wanted it, and then I would make her a CD, and then she pulled same thing out on me that Dylan kind of did as there. She goes, I've been listening on my TV, and it sounds better with the Dolby off than with the Dolby's on. And I said, yeah, it's probably not a good reference. That's your only reference is to listen off of her TV. So, anyways, we went a couple of rounds with kind of changing a couple of things that she wanted, but it was just more levels
Mhm.
than anything because it was just
There's
acoustic.
only voice and guitar.
Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
So she just wanted some couple of pieces that were just thought the voice was a little loud on. So, but other than that, yeah. And so she had also um, uh, after I'd finished that, she had had a brain aneurysm,
Mhm.
just like Neil had,
Right.
like bang. She lived in this beautiful house in Bel Air and by herself. I thought, wow, you should have a caretaker or somebody like that looks after you. And she had this like these little dogs, and they're always jumping, and she's always tripping over 'em. I thought this is just a disaster waiting. You're gonna fall one day, and trip over the dog or whatever. But she ended up having that aneurysm, and that slowed her down for a lot, and everything went quiet after that. And she was wanting to make like a box set, and so she wanted to include the that first record in there also. That's why she wanted a remix.
She's performing at the Hollywood Bowl in the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, she just did the Grammy thing, and
Grammys.
then she did. She won for the Newport Jazz Festival. They
Right.
recorded that, and that. So she won for like a live record.
Did
Or
you record anything with her playing? She said
well,
she
the
was going to
thing
be a
is,
guitarist.
yeah, she wouldn't play or sing.
Mm.
She just wanted me to mix. And then she wanted some drums on some tracks, and so I invited Brian Blade up to put some drums on a song called "Strange Boy," which just had percussion on it. And then she's a big Jocko fan. Jocko played on
Mhm.
a lot of
Right.
records. And my friend Hal Cragen, he's a bass player, and he's just Jocko everything. So I said to my friend, he can play like Jocko a little bit. So she said, "Get him over here." And so my friend Hal came over, and he played on a couple other tracks that I had with her. And so she was directing him left and right. And so too hard, too soft. Like she really was on him. Like, but he was such
Yeah.
a Joni fan, and he was just grateful for me that I invited him.
Did she have any stories of sharing anything about the original sessions for that first album? Anything that helped give you insight on how to better mix it now?
Um, Not really. She just really wanted to get it back to sounding like her other records that is just very just straight
To
and
get
clean
that second guitar.
to get that, yeah. And then but she doesn't consider herself a musician. She's an artist. Like she
Yeah.
thinks first
Music.
she's a painter.
Yeah.
That's what she claims. And then but also, as a musician, a lot of musicians are like they can't believe she invented a chord change that nobody had ever
Yeah.
had made before, and so she developed that by herself. And so she was, definitely by her peers, like the top of the bunch for sure. but yeah, it was kind of interesting record to to hang out and mix and but she was just chain smoking. I think, oh boy, it's like still doing it, and so it was a nice, she was trying to put this the compilation record of all of her records. And I said, Joni, like, do you have any of your records? She's like, nope, you don't have any of your records. Nope. Goes, I got divorced and he took all my records. And I thought, what do you mean? It's like, you don't have any of your. And so Larry Klein, she was married to this guy, Larry Klein, I guess 80s maybe. And Larry produced some of her records, or a couple of them. And so, yeah, so Larry had taken all of her violins from the divorce. But yeah, it's she had had a baby when she was at the peak of her career, I guess, when she was maybe 16 or something. So the baby was taken from her, and suddenly, while I was there, the baby came as an adult.
Oh wow!
And came to the gate.
You saw the reunion.
And it was a little bit of a reunion there. And she pretty, couldn't believe that it was real. I've seen it a couple other times. There's a what? It's your kid. It's like, oh, jeez. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. I think she had to either give the baby away, or there was some mystery about it. But somebody else brought him. I think it was a girl. But
So there, a lot of these stories, or these stories and other stories, are also in a book that you wrote called "Listen Up,"
that's correct. Yeah.
and also in you're a photographer as well. So you're taking a lot of pictures of
Yeah.
these sessions
Yeah.
and put them out in another book,
So
which
this
is
is my newest book. It's called Recording Icons slash Creative Spaces. And so over the last 30 years, I've been doing what's called time lapse photography. Because, if you take a camera and you put it up, person changes their face, the way they act, and just, but if you do time lapse, you capture people. I call it like it's National Geographic. I'm capturing these wild animals
yeah.
in their natural habitat. And so that's what I've been doing with Dylan and Joni and Neil. And so I've got some amazing photos of them singing and performing in the studios that I built for those records. And so it's architectural, it's, creative, and, you get in all different kind of like views of, because you wouldn't be able to put a photographer in a studio
Sure.
and take photos and capture them in these kind of like, these while they're singing, so it's like having a photographer that's not there.
Yeah.
So it's the new book is doing well, and so I've been doing a lot of book signings, and in the meantime, uh, I watch a lot of movies myself, and so I'm kind of a big James Bond fan, but I don't like to watch the films. I like to watch them with what's called uh, where the director talks about
Hmm.
it and everybody else. So it's like a commentary.
Right.
So I've been doing projecting the pictures from the book, and do a commentary along with it, and then that turned into those commentaries turned into. I've made a little film out of it now, where I just show this film with my commentaries there,
Right.
so I don't have to do it off the cuff, like making like I do here. And
You're working on a documentary as well,
yeah,
right?
so this is the documentary
Yeah.
that's from that book, and so hopefully that will be all finished soon, and that will be another next step after that. Hopefully, I can put that in some film festivals, and
Yeah, man.
so I'm kind of going by Bob Dylan's rules. He said anything over an hour is a waste of time, and so that's why all the shows are 1 hour, and he's off the stage. So, and I think it's these people don't have a lot of attention span these days. So, and a lot of movies are all quick edits,
Hmm.
bang, 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 to keep your attention. So, I tried to do in this kind of little documentary thing where you get a nice piece of music to listen to,
Yeah.
and then I talk about it, and then so I just want to make sure that it's not, and then the music is still there underneath my commentary, but it makes for a pretty cool watch, for learning, like we've been talking here.
Yeah.
I have these same stories in there too, so it
Awesome.
makes,
Look
yeah,
forward
yeah,
to
it
it.
should be. I'm working with this guy who's he used to be Rolling Stones editor, and now he's running Rolling Stones films. And I'm about to go to Jamaica, and then after Jamaica, I go to Barbados with this guy from New Orleans, Anders Osborne, and so they want to come and document on the sailboat where I'm going to make his record and outside of Barbados. It's going to be crazy.
All right. Sounds
So
like some
hopefully
fun.
they'll pick up with the doc, and they might be able to put it out for me. But it's all early stages of it. That would be a good home for me.
Yes.
You know.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for
Oh,
listening.
you're
Thank you for
welcome.
the work, all the
Yeah,
great
no
music
worries.
you've helped
Yeah,
create.
well, thank you. It's all I'm the gorilla
And
doing it, and it's like like I'm talking with these people like they're normal people. And
yeah,
I think that a lot of them appreciate that, that I can be real with them, and where a lot of people are starstruck and don't know what to
yeah,
say or whatever. But just like talking to you,
yeah,
talk to them like the same way, and there's no stardom or anything like that. They're just people too, and so they just happen to be good at what they do, and I do good stuff with what I do. So the mix is nice and real, feels organic, and I'm not trying to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I just it's really, it's not the way I record stuff. It's really the way those people sound. Like Neil sounds that way, Bob sounds that way. Their character voices, their voice comes on, and that's the way they sound. And a lot of people think, well, you must be doing some kind of thing, but no, it's just a microphone in front of somebody, and
yeah.
that's what I do. And I just put it in different environments, and I capture these beautiful pieces out of them.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Mark.
you're welcome.
I'll see you soon.
All right, cheers. Mhm.